The Woman in the Mirror, a Deadly Reflection. Sarah. Whitman was the classic image of a wallflower. She wore oversized glasses, dressed in baggy clothes, and always had her hair pulled back into a tight, conservative bun. Her meek demeanor made her the perfect target for two office bullies, Brad and Todd. They took every chance to mock her, calling her Nerdy Sarah and making snide comments about her quiet nature. It was their daily entertainment. One afternoon, as Sarah was carrying a stack of heavy files across the office, Todd stuck his foot out, tripping her. She crashed to the floor, her head hitting the floor with a sickening thud. Laughter echoed from both men as Sarah struggled to gather her things, tears welling in her eyes. She ran to the restroom, desperate to hide her humiliation. She glanced at her reflection, still hearing the cruel laughter in her mind. But then something strange happened. Her reflection didn't look sad or embarrassed. Instead, it stared back at her with a smirk, an unfamiliar confidence gleaming in its eyes. "Pull yourself together, Sarah," her reflection said, its tone sharp and fierce. "Go back to work. I'll deal with them." A shiver ran down Sarah's spine, but she did as the reflection told her, wiping her tears and returning to her desk, unaware that the bump on her head had triggered something dark inside her. That night, Sarah fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. But as the clock struck midnight, her eyes fluttered open, and they weren't Sarah's eyes anymore. This time, they gleamed with a seductive, dangerous fire. She glanced in the mirror and saw herself transformed. Her hair was down, her makeup dark and alluring, and her outfit was anything but nerdy. She smirked, her voice smooth and low. "I know exactly where to find Brad tonight." Without a second thought, she headed out to the local bar where she knew Brad spent his evenings. There he was, sitting alone, nursing a drink. She sauntered over, catching his eye immediately. "Well, hello there," Brad grinned, looking her up and down. "First time here? I'd remember seeing someone like you." She smiled back, her voice purring. "I'm new in town, just looking for some company." Her smile held an edge that Brad was too enamored to notice. After some flirtatious banter, she whispered, "Why don't we go to your place? We could be alone there." Brad didn't need any convincing. He led her back to his apartment, eager for whatever he thought the night held. But as soon as they were inside, her demeanor shifted. Her smile turned cold, and she pulled a knife from her handbag, stabbing him repeatedly with calculated precision. His shocked expression faded as he collapsed, lifeless, onto the floor. With a satisfied smirk, she returned home and fell asleep, the memory of the murder slipping away with the night. The next morning, Sarah awoke feeling strangely refreshed, with no memory of the previous night's events. She dressed in her usual attire and went to work, oblivious to the news of Brad's murder circulating through the office. When she overheard people talking about it, she gasped, "That's terrible. Who would do such a thing?" But her day passed without incident, and she returned home that evening, ready to unwind. Yet, as the clock neared midnight, her alter ego stirred again, her eyes snapping open with a hungry gleam. "I have one more man to take care of," she whispered to herself, already plotting Todd's demise. That night, she tracked Todd down at a poker game he frequented with friends. Waiting until the game ended and he was alone, she sauntered over, catching him by surprise. "Well, well," Todd said, looking her up and down. "What's a beautiful lady like you doing out here alone?" "I was hoping to find someone like you," she replied with a sly grin. "Want to take me somewhere more private?" Todd's eyes sparkled with interest. "Lead the way," he said, and they ended up at a secluded part of the nearby park, far from prying eyes. As they sat on a bench, Todd leaned in, but she pushed him back with a chilling smile. "I have a surprise for you, Todd." From her handbag, she pulled out a long knife, stabbing him in his chest with unexpected strength. Todd struggled, his hands clawing at the knife, but she held firm until his thrashing stopped. She watched as he slumped over, lifeless. The transformation complete, she returned home, shedding her disguise as she fell into bed and drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Sarah awoke, unaware of what had happened. But as she entered the office, she was met with horrified looks. News of Todd's death had spread, and she overheard someone whisper, "First Brad, now Todd. Who would do this?" Confused and disturbed, Sarah tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting to her bruised forehead and the strange dreams she'd been having. Desperate for answers, she hurried to the restroom and stared into the mirror, but this time her reflection didn't stay silent. Instead, it smirked back at her, its eyes dark and menacing. What's happening to me?" she whispered. Her reflection chuckled darkly. "You wanted to be left alone. Now you don't have to worry about those two ever again." Sarah's eyes widened in horror, realizing the truth. Her reflection, her other self, had killed Brad and Todd, and enjoyed it. "No, this can't be happening," she gasped, her hands trembling. But her reflection's voice was icy. "You created me, Sarah. I did what you were too weak to do, and I'm not going anywhere." In a panic, Sarah turned away from the mirror, but as she walked out of the restroom, her reflection stayed behind, grinning and whispering, "You can't escape me. Not ever."
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more spine-tingling tales. And turn on notifications to never miss an episode.